Are you talking to me? Hey everybody, this is Phenomenous. And I've got some stuff to talk about, so let's get right into it. Alex Jones faces ruin as he's found guilty in all four Handy Sook defamation cases. InfoWars conspiracy theorist is liable for damages after calling massacre a hoax and the victims crisis actors. Today is Tuesday, November 16th. This was written yesterday on the Daily Fail. Alex Jones, the host of InfoWars and right-wing conspiracy theorist, has been found guilty by default in all four defamation cases. Now, just note the default. By default. Defamation cases over his claims that Handy Sook school massacre was a giant hoax aimed at increasing gun control. The Superior Court judge in Connecticut made the ruling on Monday morning because Jones refused to turn over documents ordered by the courts to back up his defense, including financial records, according to the New York Times. His conviction is a sweeping victory for the parents of 8 people killed. 8. There's that 8 again. Just like Astroworld. Very important. 8. Killed in the Newtown massacre on December 14th, 2012. Gunman Adam Lanza, 20 years old, killed 20 first grade and 6 teachers. You got your 20 and your 6. Lanza fatally shot his mother at their home before going to school and later killed himself as police arrived. Juries in both states have not yet determined how much damages Jones and the other defendants will pay the families. Trials on the matter are scheduled in both states for next year, though Jones' finances are murky, with nearly all of his income thought to be derived from the sales of dubious health supplements. Your tangerine and your bone broth and your, caveman cocoa mix or whatever. To his loyal followers, he is thought to have a net worth of roughly $5 million. Conviction combines with 3 rulings in Texas last month that found Jones liable for damages and defamation lawsuits that stem from his statements about the Newtown massacre. The shooting was portrayed on Jones' InfoWars show as a giant hoax, and the families involved were all crisis actors hired to perpetrate a government agenda to increase gun control. Jones has since acknowledged the school shooting did occur. The Handy Sook families that sued Jones claimed that he profited by spreading lies. Terrible. Spreading lies about the murders of their loved ones. Jones has disputed their claims, but failed to turn over documents and financial records to support his stance after ordered to do so into court. To do. Look, I didn't space it. Superior Court Judge Barbara Bellis made the ruling after years of what she called inappropriate conduct by Jones and his attorneys regarding dispositions and the callous disregard of their obligation to turn over financial and web analytics documents as ordered by the court, reported the Hartford Courant. Mr. Jones is very used to saying whatever he wants to say from the comfort of his own studio, but what I think this case has shown is that when he is forced to defend his conduct in court of law and comply with court orders, that it's a very different ballgame. Attorney Chris Mattei, a lawyer representing the Handy Sook families, told the news outlet. He added, "The fact that the court has left with no choice but to default him shows that just how unwilling Mr. Jones was to have his conduct exposed to the light of day in front of a jury." The ruling is the most severe sanction Bellis could issue by sending the case directly to the jury and skipping the long-anticipated civil trial. Jones previously claimed that his statements and claims were protected by the First Amendment, despite admitting that he was wrong and conceding in court that the shooting was real. Last month, Judge Maya Guerrera Gamble in Austin, home of InfoWars, entered the default judgment against Jones, InfoWars, and other defendants for what she called their flagrant bad faith and callous disregard of court orders to turn over documents to the parents' lawyers. While the amount of damages is yet to be determined, it could send Jones on the brink of financial ruin, though his finances are murky, with nearly all of his income thought to be... Okay, I already said that. In a video released on his website after the court ruling last month, Jones claimed that the state of Texas was coming after him because he's standing in their way after they crucified the First Amendment. Every basic form of American liberty is being abolished and overturned as we speak. They're coming after me because I'm standing in their way. They're coming after me because they're coming after you, he said. He also claims that Texas law states you can't sue someone if they didn't say their name for defamation. He said before claiming he hadn't mentioned anyone's name, "I'm being sued by people whose names I've never said. This is clearly a way to attack the First Amendment." U.S. libel laws states the defendant can't be sued for using someone else's name, likeness, or other personal attributes, although the law can vary by state, such as the statute of limitations. The basics of the law stay the same state by state. Jones also attributes his loss to his entry-level lawyers because the judge and the previous judge will never let him have the lawyers I want that are all well-known, famous First Amendment lawyers. He also claimed that Americans need to be good and steadfast and love each other before asking his followers to pray for our ancestors and pray for those that persecute us, because that's what Christ told us to do. During a sworn disposition in 2019, Jones blamed his previous statements about the school shooting on a form of psychosis. "I talk for 4 hours a day, and I can't remember what I talked about sometimes a week ago," he claimed at the time. Families of some of the school shooting victims sued Jones, InfoWars, and others in court in Texas and Connecticut over the hoax conspiracy, saying that they have been subjected to harassment and death threats from Jones' followers. Jones' attorney in Connecticut, Norman Pattis, criticized the Texas judge's ruling in a statement on the InfoWars website. "It takes no account on the tens of thousands of documents produced by the defendants, the hours spent sitting for dispositions, and the various sworn statements filed in these cases," they said. "We are distressed by what we regard as a blatant abuse of discretion by the trial court. We are determined to see that these cases are heard on the merits." Jones' lawyers have denied the defamation allegations and argued his comments about the school shooting were protected by free speech. One of the Texas lawsuits was filed by Leonard Posner and Veronique De La Rosa, whose son Noah was killed in the shooting. The two others were filed by Neil Heslin and Scarlett Lewis, whose son Jesse was killed. Several others, families of the victims, are suing on similar claims in Connecticut. Bill Ogden, a Houston lawyer representing the four parents in the Texas cases, said Jones and InfoWars have failed to turn over documents for the past few years. He added, "Such default judgments are rare. My clients have and continue to endure defendants' 5-year campaign of repulsive lies," Ogden said in a statement, which quoted the judge's ruling. "We believe the court hit this nail on the head when it considered Alex Jones's and InfoWars' bad faith approach to this litigation. Mr. Jones' public threats and Jones' professed belief that these proceedings are show trials." So, there's more. Okay. Guerrera Gamble said in her ruling that she was defaulting Jones and the other defendants after an escalating series of admonishments by judges. Monetary fines and other actions was ineffective in getting the defendants to turn over documents. In 2019, Jones was ordered by another Texas judge to pay $100,000 in fees to Heslin's lawyer for disregarding a court order to produce witnesses. Jones also was sanctioned in the Connecticut cases for violating numerous orders to turn over documents and for an angry outburst on his web show against an attorney for some of the victims' relatives. A judge barred Jones from filing a motion to dismiss the case, a ruling that was upheld after being appealed all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which declined to hear Jones' appeal in April. So, what do we have here? We have maybe it's kind of a scare tactic, really, to tell those conspiracy theorists that want to spread misinformation, quote unquote, on the internet because they could be held liable. But at the same time, he defaulted his cases, and we all know that Jones is a CIA agent, and he did it on purpose, without a doubt. It's all intentional because of this scare tactic. Anyways, that's what I think. I think it's kind of meant to scare us, really, from continuing to fight this information war with the truth. Because we all know he doesn't spread the truth. He'll give you half-truths, and he will give you some good information, but he always puts the poison cherry on top. And here's yet another example where he blows up and makes a big deal and a big monkey out of himself, and gets in trouble with the Handy Sook stuff, and then he comes out and says it's all, it was legit, whatever, it really happened and all that. Just, it's a circus, people. Anyways, let's move on. Oops. This is from thejournal.ie. This was posted a few days, well, actually Monday. It's from Monday. So yesterday. Austria begins lockdown for those not vaccinated against the C19er. Austria will begin a lockdown for people not vaccinated against C19er, a first in the EU as the Alpine member fights a record surge in cases. Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg has said. Schallenberg. About 65% of Austria's almost 9 million people are vaccinated, below the EU average of 67%, while daily cases and infections have hit records this week. Other European governments are also eyeing unpopular COVID curbs, with the Neanderthals, the Netherlands opting for Western Europe's first partial lockdown of the winter. Austria's lockdown means people over 12 who are not vaccinated or cannot show that they have recently recovered from COVID will not be allowed to leave the house except for reasons such as buying essential supplies, exercise, or seeking medical care. The situation is serious. We don't take this step with a little heart, but unfortunately it is necessary, Schallenberg told reporters in a televised press conference. The lockdowns are to be enforced with random spot checks for the next 10 days, with police patrols being stepped up. It will then be reviewed, according to the government. Those who break the rules risk a 500 whatever that is fine. Those who refuse to show proof that they are that they are vaccinated or have recently recovered can be fined 3 times as much. Oh wow, that's brutal. The main committee of Parliament approved the lockdown last night. In his news conference, Schallenberg called again on those who have not yet been vaccinated to get jabbed. Get jabbed. Fight back now. Hundreds gathered outside the Chancellery for his announcement in a noisy protest, waving banners that read, "No to mandatory vaccination, and our body, our freedom to decide." I'm here to set a sign. We must fight back now. We want to work. We want to help people, but we don't want to vaccinate ourselves because this is simply our decision. Well, it can't just be that. Because there's so much more to it than that. Like the fact that it doesn't stop, transmission or spread. But we'll get into that later. Unvaccinated 30-year-old hospital worker told AFP. The government on Friday announced vaccinations would become mandatory for health workers. Under current rules, unvaccinated are already banned from restaurants, hotels, and cultural venues unless they can show that they have recently recovered from the disease. Healthy people are being, so that just encourages them to get infected. Right? Well, I can't do these things, so I better go out and get COVID. That's basically what your two options are: is you get their jab or you go catch it. But good luck catching the fairy tale virus or any of its variants. Healthy people are being locked up. I guess you can catch a cold. It doesn't really matter. You can get a positive test. You don't need to catch anything. Rub it on a piece of fruit. You'll be good. Healthy people are being locked up. Another demonstrator told AFP, declining to give her name. Vienna is further toughening rules requiring PCR tests on top of being vaccinated or recovered to attend events of more than 25 people or to go to bars and restaurants in the evening. Well, we gotta test you even though you've been vaccinated, because it doesn't stop anything. Also, from today, the capital is becoming the first region in the EU to offer jabs to children from the ages of 5 to 11 at a vaccination center. Oops, I meant a vaccination center. Appointments were booked for more than 5,000 children when registered open on Saturday, the city said. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, has not yet issued an authorization for any of the vaccines. I almost said the evil V word. To be used for this age group, though member states have the right to do so in public health emergency. So far, about 11,700 people infected with the coronavirus have died in Austria. Daily cases hit a record high for more than 13,000 new infections on Saturday. In the Netherlands, Dutch Premier Mark Rutte announced on Friday at least 3 weeks of lockdown measures targeting restaurants, shops, and sporting events to curb a record spike in coronavirus infections. So there you go. Here's some more tyranny. So, what was I talking about? Speaking of, the nutty parents of Handy Suck, how about, and the Austria vaccinated, how about the crazy nuts of Team Molly that I have talked about in a previous video. Actually, it was my last video. Team Molly. The eyes. The eyes. Doesn't that just terrify you? Wow. That comment's funny. I'm not going to read it out loud. Anyways, I was looking into this person, this creature with the eyes, and it's kind of an interesting thing. So, let's do this. No, I didn't. Oh, yeah. Just to brief you if you haven't seen the previous video. So she shared that pic that is no longer on her Twitter feed. I shared Eli's vaccination pic, and now I'm receiving insane hate-filled messages from anti-vaccine lunatics. What a world. But yeah, so it goes on from there, and there's a lot of people striking back at this crazy nutcase here, the Branch Covidian psycho. But I don't know. This person is a very interesting person. I don't think they're your typical person. They're a checkmark person for one thing. Proud mama of 3, writer and attorney, finding meaning in the wake of trauma and loss, authentically sharing it all. Team Molly, and you got your rainbow and your butterfly and your purple heart, making a difference every day. This person has a story, and her husband is even more interesting, but we'll get into that. Let's start with a little introduction story from the New York Post. A story of Team Molly. While her daughter was hospitalized, one mother built more room for our our national grief. She did. This is from February 21st of 2021. Strapped in the front seat of an ambulance as her daughter lay injured in the back, Kay Steinsaper took out her phone and began to type. Please, 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 she wrote in a part. Everyone pray for my daughter, Molly. She has been in an accident and suffered a brain trauma. Later that day, at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, she tweeted her message. I don't know about you, but if my child was in the back of an ambulance, the last thing I'd be doing is taking out my phone to write a message for Twitter. But I guess we're not all psychopaths. Okay, anyways, I digress. Her daughter, 12, was injured while riding her bicycle with a friend near the family's home in Los Angeles. Mrs. Steinsaper, 43, said she was grasping for a tool that could quickly get her plea to as wide an audience as possible, because when your child is seriously injured, you just want to get it out to the world so everyone else knows, right? You want to brag about it. I was so helpless, she said in an interview on Thursday. I just wanted to broadcast to anyone who could lift Molly up in prayer and could lift me up in prayer too. I don't know, I would maybe call family members, close friends, maybe. I don't know, just thought. The hospital's COVID-era rule initially prevented her and her husband, Jonathan Steinsaper, remember that name, Jonathan Steinsaper, from being at Molly's bedside together. The first day of the hospitalization, Mr. Steinsaper spent the days with their two sons at home, while Mrs. Steinsaper remained with their daughter in the intensive care unit. In the hospital, there were so many hours of waiting and nothing to be done. She said, in the darkest moments of panic or uncertainty, she reached out on the internet. So many people shared stories of survival from traumatic brain injury, said Mrs. Steinsaper, who is a lawyer, as is her husband. The hope that all these strangers gave us was what sustained us. If we didn't have the hope, I don't know how we would have been able to do what we needed to do. To parent Molly and parent our boys, she said. She didn't have much experience on Twitter, like many parents. She had shared family photographs to a small circle on Facebook and Instagram, but in the months before the most recent presidential election, why would they mention that? She began to spend more time on Twitter following news sources and politicians. She barely knew how to tweet. In turning her phone to express her determination, anguish, and fear, it never occurred to her that she would begin a 16-day-long conversation. One more and you could add the 17. Between thousands of strangers from around the world about life, death, family, religion, and ritual. Elena Nichols, a doctor and lawyer in Birmingham, Atlanta, checked in on Mrs. Steinsaper every day. As a mother, I was drawn to her vulnerability and her strength, and how she managed to turn Twitter into a positive tool of connection and hope, she said. This year, Dr. Nicole said the election reactions to the most recent Black Lives Matter movement in the pandemic have turned the internet into a marketplace of anger and vitriol. Social media can be so toxic, and a doom-scrolling phenomenon can put you in the place of total helplessness, she said, but Kay gave us a way to help. She told us we could pray for her and her daughter. Our nation is divided on every big thing happening right now, and here it is. Here it is you have yet another tragedy, but it has had the opposite effect. Coronavirus pandemic has left Americans grappling with the colliding forces of isolation and grief, with technology and social media becoming further entangled with the ritual of death. COVID goodbyes are routinely said via FaceTime, with hospital staff using phones and tablets to help family members approximate bedside vigils and final goodbyes. Okay, now it just goes into a bunch of celebrity things, so I'm going to skip ahead. Mrs. Killerman followed Mrs. Steinsaper's story on Twitter and understood from her own experiences, the desire to share in real time. In a normal situation, there would be 20 family members rotating in to support her and her husband, Miss Kilmartin said. I'm glad she had the internet to hold her hand. And there you go. A part of this whole agenda is isolating you from your family members and having you turn to the internet because that's what they need you to be, right? Metaverse. Mrs. Steinsaper also explained to her followers why she was letting strangers in on the experience. Writing and sharing my pain helps to lessen it, she wrote. When I'm sitting here in the sterile room, hour after hour, your messages of hope make me feel less alone. Even my husband, who is very private, likes reading them. In what became a short-form diary, Mrs. Steinsaper provided unvarnished description of the realities of witnessing a medical crisis marked by endless hours of waiting for her daughter to wake up and that are then punctured by sudden calamity. She heaped praise on her daughter's doctors and nurses, worried about her 2 young sons, Nate and Eli, and told the internet all about her daughter, an environmentalist and animal lover, who chose to be a vegetarian before she was in kindergarten, who was devoted to Judaism and feminism. She used she/her pronouns for God, and who dreamed of being a theater actress and a politician. Like Miss Teagan, Mrs. Steinsaper pushed back against people who criticized her. Believe me, I wish I were doing anything but desperately begging for prayers to save my daughter on Twitter, she replied. But mostly she called for support through prayers. The focus on God was part of what drew Melissa Jones, a mother in Locust Grove, Georgia, I think, to read each tweet and reply, even befriending others who were following closely. The face she had hit me, said Miss Jones, who cried when speaking about a family. She said she has come to love the internet. The internet right now is a horrible place. The Trump years were very divisive, and people had been just so ugly for the last 4 years. But Molly's spirit brought out the faith and the goodness in people. Miss Jones had also faced the possibility of losing a child when her son was critically injured. My son was in a coma for 11 days. There's an 11, the magic number. And I had that experience of wondering, is my child going to wake up and am I going to have them back? I knew exactly what Kay was, she said. Or where Kay was. On February 15th, Miss Steinsaper announced that Molly had died. While our hearts are broken in a way that feels like they can never be mended, we take comfort knowing that Molly's 12 years were filled with love and joy. We are immensely blessed to be her parents, she wrote. She agreed to speak to a reporter amid her family's mourning. She said, because Molly would want her to console the millions of Americans who have lost loved ones in the last year. I want to communicate to people that we honor everyone who is grieving and want to share with them the light and love that was shown through Molly. Sorry. So yeah, okay. So we have that story. But it gets more interesting. Here's this one. Daughter 12 of Michael Jackson's estate lawyer dies 2 weeks after a tragic bike accident left her hospitalized with a traumatic brain injury. Michael Jackson's estate lawyer. So the 12-year-old daughter of Michael Jackson's estate lawyer, Jonathan Steinsaper, has died 2 weeks after a tragic bike accident left her hospital with a traumatic brain injury. Molly Steinsaper died Monday. Died Monday from injuries sustained on January 31st accident when she was riding her bicycle downhill while wearing a helmet. The little girl's brave fight for her life has gripped MJ fans worldwide after her mom's, Kay Steinsaper, documented her progress on social media. Kay, a lawyer from Los Angeles, announced her daughter's tragic death on Twitter Monday, telling supporters she had been called home to God, and she puts this dash between the G and the D. I don't know why she does that. Molly has been called home to G-D. While our hearts are broken in a way that feels like they can never be mended, we take comfort knowing that Molly's 12 years was filled with love and joy. We are immensely blessed to be her parents. In a follow-up tweet, Kay said she and her husband know that she is watching over us and smiling at her two beloved little brothers, Nate and Eli, and her cat, Leroy, and her dog, Calvin. Am I still recording? Yes. The family asked the people to donate to a children's charity or do something good for someone who needs it instead of sending flowers. Molly's brave fight touched people worldwide, with MJ fan account and Justice for Some sharing Kay's posts throughout and urging fans Monday to let Steinsappers know where you are from and that you prayed for their precious daughter. John Steinsappers and his wife Kay's daughters has passed away. John is the estate attorney who has battled against many cases, they tweeted. Deepest condolences go out to Steinsappers' family. This is just heartbreaking. CNN's Jack Taper also tweeted his condolences. Oh no. Oh, I am so sorry. I have been following and praying, and his news is crushing. I am so sorry. So, this is, it's gotten a lot of attention, hey? It's like... That's a horrible picture to show, if it's legit. I don't even know if this girl actually died or not. I'm not going to question it, though, because I don't want to be insensitive. But again, I can't help but question some things, because there's a lot of weirdness here. Meanwhile, Star Wars actor Mark Hamill shared a heartbreak emoji. A GoFundMe set up to pay for medical expenses and support the family had raised more than $19,000. Why does a fancy estate lawyer need donations for? Why did you need those donations? That's an interesting question. You can't afford those medical expenses for your daughter? You're the estate lawyer for Michael Jackson? Excuse me? Molly was rushed to hospital on January 31st. And your wife is a freaking attorney too, so come on. After tragedy struck when she was biking with a friend, she was undergoing treatment in the UCLA. Kay, who now has 105,000 followers on Twitter, chronicled the ups and downs of her daughter's 2-week fight on social media, and it quickly went viral as people rallied around the young girls and her family. Currently living every parent's worst nightmare, they are taking her for another scan now because her brain pressure is higher. Yeah, we don't need to hear this stuff. She died. We get it. She's dead. So she told how Molly's incredible friend Emmy was with her at the time and ran all the way home while bleeding and still in shock and got her parents. Emmy is an incredible friend. Her bravery and strength no doubt saved Molly's life. Well, they didn't save Molly's life. She also thanked the woman who stopped and called 911 and stayed with our girl while Emmy ran home. We thank GD for her. A few days later, on February 4th, Kay wrote that MRI results were good and they were so relieved. But the 12-year-old's condition deteriorated Sunday, with Kay tweeting the heartbreaking news that she passed away. So, yeah. The doctors who will do more. Okay, that's just more explanation of what's happening. Breaking images, police protect. Okay, there's some weirdness here. Her mom paid tribute to Molly's old soul, telling supporters throughout the ordeal how the 12-year-old was interested in politics. She was heartbroken by the images of police brutality and the assault in the Capitol. She had a painting in her room that says, "Making a difference every day." She made an immense difference in her 12-year-old's. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of manipulation. Was she really heartbroken by the police brutality and the state cap? Well, maybe the police brutality, because if you don't explain it right to the kid, and there is brutality, no doubt. Yeah, that's one thing. But the Capitol. She's heartbroken by the Capitol. Yeah, okay. Molly has an intense interest in government and politics and would not have missed watching. She would be explaining to all her friends and classmates, Kay wrote. Molly's father has represented Jackson Estate in several legal fights since his death from propofol overdosed in 2009. Most recently, the estate won an appeal in December in a case against HBO's over its 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, telling the story of two child stars who accused the king of pop of sexually abusing them. The estate sued. Okay, so it ends really weird, this article, because it just goes on about him and just some random stuff that he's done. Like, but this article is supposed to be about the kid. It's supposed to be... But no, we'll end it on the lawyer. Speaking of the lawyer, let's look a little bit into Jonathan Steinsaper, because, man, this guy has a list of things he's done. So, here we go. Jonathan Steinsaper is a partner with the firm. He is a trial lawyer who has successfully tried cases before juries, judges, and arbitrators. He is an accomplished appellate advocate who has argued about a dozen appeals before the 9th Circuit and 11th Circuit and the California Court of Appeal in recent years. And he is a counselor to clients hoping to avoid litigation altogether. His practice focuses on complex litigation in client counseling and entertainment, music, and software matters, along with matters in most of other commercial sectors. He has particular expertise in intellectual property issues, having handled disputes in all forms from license negotiations to litigating all stages of dozens of copyright, patent, and trademark cases throughout the country. He also counsels clients in employment-related issues and represents both employees and employers in high-stakes trade secret, non-compete, and discrimination matters. He also has extensive experience litigating probate issues in both probate and other courts, particularly when they intersect with intellectual property matters. So that's all fine and good, right? So we'll get through to the good part here. Wow, that can't be good. Mr. Steinsaper graduated from the UCLA School of Law in 2002 and was elected into the Order of the Coif. He graduated with honors from UCSD in 1998 and spent a year studying politics in Israel at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. From August through December of 2001, Mr. Steinsaper worked in the Pentagon for the Office of the General Counsel to Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. A month after the September 11th attacks on the Pentagon, he traveled to Uzbekistan as the Pentagon's only on-site legal advisor. The only on-site legal advisor during the negotiation and signing of an executive agreement between the United States and Uzbekistan, mandating the cleanup of a notorious former Soviet biological weapons testing site in the Aral Sea. Like, whoa. What? This has a 9/11? This has a biological weapons connection here? Donald Rumsfeld? What? So, I mean, this isn't just some nobody. Recognized for his expertise in intellectual property and related issues, Mr. Steinsaper is frequently asked to comment on pending matters of interest by various publications, including the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Playboy, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, Billboard, and the Daily Journal. From 2014 forward, Mr. Steinsaper has been named every year by his peers as super lawyer in intellectual property litigation in Southern California Super Lawyers magazine. And oh yes, he gets mentioned a lot in these articles and stuff. Like if you just look up his name and type in news, you'll see tons of the little articles, and he's always got his name in there, or they have him for comment. He is not somebody small. He's much bigger in the game. And apparently his wife is a lawyer, but I haven't had a chance to find much on that. There is a LinkedIn with her name, but I'm not signed in on this computer. I'm only signed in on my phone. Let's see if I can find anything about it that would be interesting. She possibly also goes as... Like, she has other aliases. There's this K Chaffee. Chaffrey or Chaffee. No, it's Chaffrey. That's one of her aliases, but I haven't found much about it. I'm going to read to you from my phone if there's anything interesting, because I didn't get around to popping this up on the screen. If this is actually her. Everything checks out for location and stuff. So, Mrs. Kynes, I'm reading from my phone. My practice, this is her LinkedIn. K. Steinsaper, employment attorney at Bryan Cave. She's a UCLA School of Law. My practice frequently involves trade secret and restrictive covenant and employee unfair competition issues. I've specialized in this area for over 15 years, having litigated such matters through trial and arbitration. I counsel clients on how to safeguard their confidential, proprietary, and trade secret information. I draft client policies, train their personnel, and participate in hire onboarding processes to minimize the risk of potential claims by competitors. I regularly work on corporate mergers and acquisitions, concentrating on employment-related due diligence, restrictive covenants, and transfers of employees. I practice all facets of employment law, including counseling and litigation. This includes state and federal discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and disability claims, as well as wage and hour, class, and collective actions. I work closely with in-house counsel and HR personnel to provide advice and counseling to clients on a wide variety of employment matters, including termination, layoffs, wage and hour, disability, sexual harassment claims and prevention, family and medical leave laws, and paid sick leave laws. I draft and review employees' handbooks and policies, as well as employment consulting and separation agreements. I provide practical advice and partner with clients to deliver exceptional results in a cost-effective manner. So, yes. Well, she's been a super lawyer, 2018, 2019. She was a super lawyer. Super lawyer, Southern California rising star for 8 consecutive years from 2009 to 2017. Super Lawyers Magazine. No more than 2.5% of California lawyers are named to Super Lawyers list on Rising Stars. Very interesting. So I'm just scrolling through. This doesn't need to be a whole lot. Okay. Can I search her on the thing? That would be interesting. Let me search. K. Steinsaper. Gotcha. Oh, it's her. It's legit. Alright. I'm not trying to get all personal, and I don't advise anyone try to contact this woman in any way. This is just for informational purposes. This is just looking into the people that push agendas online. So we're not saying to do anything. We're just looking. That's it. I don't want anyone getting into trouble or causing trouble, because that's not the point of what I do. We just observe what is happening in the world and the players involved in the world. So this is just stuff she's worked on. Yeah, it's nothing interesting. Lawyer stuff. But I was just wondering if it was actually her. Anyways, we'll move on. A little bit more from the hypocrisy of Team Molly. And you know, what a disgusting thing to use a child to push for the vaccination of children. I mean, it's one thing to have a foundation for your daughter, you know, and to use it to support other foundations and, you know, charities and stuff like that, but to just push this crap is gross. It's evil. I mean, what the hell's wrong with you? Oh, this is interesting. Dan Rather here. We have a dangerous rise in this anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, we have anti-vaxxers wearing yellow stars. I was 14 years old when the concentration camps were liberated. The images I saw are seared in my memory. We have to cut out this crap. Learn the history. Fight hate. Well, see. Oh, and never forget. Well, you've clearly forgotten, or because you're a douchebag for the New World Order shill, you say this, but it's actually the opposite. You guys have forgotten, and you're going to let history repeat because you're douchebags. And this thing from I don't even know. I shared a photo of our 5-year-old son being vaccinated in response to one of our of your teats. Your teats. It didn't take long for the anti-vaxxers to attack me. It didn't take long after that for the basis of their attacks to because of our Jewishness. Even more despicable, they found out we are Jewish because they saw a photo of a Jewish preschool being dedicated in honor of our beloved late 12-year-old daughter, Molly, died in February. Even the naming of our childhood center in her honor was not off limits for her, the anti-Semitism. Team Molly forever. Yeah, well, you know what? It's pretty obvious of your Jewiness if you just look at the name. I don't even care about that. I don't even care about that you asked for donations when you and your husband are both successful lawyers. Because that's just typical of lawyers. Anyways, let's look at some of the hypocrisy of the Team Molly people. HCW, waxed but immunocompromised, fighting for her life. This is another reason to get waxed, to protect those for whom vaccines don't work as well because of their immune systems. Team Molly, K. Steinsaper. Can we send prayers their way? So, here's another interesting character. My wife was intubated earlier this morning. The hope is she won't need to be for long. My wife has intubated and cared for countless COVID patients. I provided spiritual care to COVID patients and their families. To be on the other side of this is both scary and surreal. Hey, this is even the right tweet. I hope she is better off and invent soon. Out of curiosity, has she gotten her booster, and which wax had she gotten? So this thing's wife had the double Pfizer and boosted. I'm so glad you're getting your booster. Who are you, Chaplain? Chaplain, mildly agitated. Memento mori. MM33. Hospice, ICU, COVID unit chaplain, mask apologist, vaccine evangelist, grumpy, queer, sacred harp lover, wet blanket, non-binary, they, them, BLM. And that tells you everything you need to know about this person and why that no matter how many jabs they take, they still believe in the holy jab. Because they're, as they even say it themselves, an evangelist. Even though there's plenty of evidence that they don't work. Yes, the secret sauce does not protect you from transmission or spread. Even Fauci himself. Hey, Tony issues warning. Vaccinated people are seeing a waning of immunity, not against COVID, not against infection, but hospitalization and death. It's waning to the point that you're seeing more people getting breakthrough infections and winding up in the hospital. So even the thing that they claim it's supposed to do, which is not immunity, it doesn't actually claim immunity. It's not providing immunity because that's not what it does. Supposedly what it's supposed to do is prevent this. It's supposed to stop this from happening. It's supposed to turn regular people into asymptomatic people. But weren't they already asymptomatic, a large majority, before the vaccines came out? Wasn't Fauci just issued his urgent warning to vaccinated people? The U.S. has been fighting the COVID pandemic for nearly 2 years now. We all hoped that the virus would be eradicated by now. A full year since the introduction of highly effective vaccines, slowing vaccination rates, and a fast-spreading variant kept the pandemic in full swing over the summer. According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, only 58.5% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated, leaving more than 60 million people unvaccinated despite being eligible. But while health officials caution that the unvaccinated are most at risk right now, some experts now say that the vaccinated people should also be on high alert. On November 12th, White House COVID advisor Antonia Fauci, MD, went on New York Times podcast The Daily to discuss the current state of the coronavirus. The U.S., according to Fauci, officials are now starting to see some waning immunity against both infection and hospitalization several months after initial vaccination. The infectious disease expert pointed toward incoming data from Israel, which he noted tends to be about a month to a month and a half ahead of us in terms of the outbreak. They are seeing waning immunity, not only against infection, but against hospitalization, and to some extent death, which is starting to now involve all age groups. It isn't just the elderly, Fauci said. It's waning to the point that you're seeing more and more people getting breakthrough infections, and more of those people who are getting breakthrough infections are winding up in the hospital. You mean like we've said from the beginning that would have exactly what would happen when you get the cold flu season coming in, that all these people with their compromised immune systems, because that's exactly what it does, it compromises your immune system, are now experiencing hospitalization. Shocker. As a result of these findings, Fauci warned that vaccinated people should get their booster shot as it might actually be more important than health officials first realized. If one looks back at this, one can say, do you know, it isn't if a booster is a bonus, but a booster might actually be an essential part of the primary regimen that people should have, he said on the Daily. Fauci went on to say, I think that the boosting is going to be an absolutely essential component of our response, not a bonus, but a luxury. Sorry, not a luxury, but an absolute essential part of the program. Yes, but did you know that Israel is already talking about a fourth booster, possibly a fifth booster, and one nutcase on the frickin' government of their government said even 6 and more? I shit you not, that happened, and I don't know if I reported on it or not, but definitely read it. Neither the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, nor the CDC has extended booster eligibility yet to more of the general public, while all Johnson & Johnson recipients are authorized to get an additional shot. Only high-risk Moderna and Pfizer recipients are eligible, per the agency's guidelines. But some states, like California and Colorado, have recently sidestepped the two agencies by expanding booster eligibility to all adults in their states already, allow patients to self-determine their risk of exposure. Thomas J. Aragon, MD, the Director and State Public Health Officer for California's Department of Public Health, wrote in a November 9th letter to local health providers, do not turn a patient away who is requesting a booster. During the November 12th podcast, Fauci also touted the effectiveness and safety of the boosters. We've shown that boosters are safe and effective in dramatically increasing the response. Not only they need new slogans, man. Safe and effective is so played out. Come up with something new, like they do with the climate change. They upped it from global warming to climate change to climate crisis, climate chaos. Come on, you gotta step up your game. Come up with some new stuff, like I don't know. Safe and obedient. I don't know. Where was I? Dramatically increasing response not only immunologically, but also when you look at the clinical data from Israel, it's very clear that it reverses some of the waning effects that you see in people who have been vaccinated 6 months or more, or 6. The need for boosters doesn't mean that the vaccine... I said the word. The vaccine don't work. However, on the contrary, Fauci stressed that he does not think that we've given the full rein to prove that what it is that you need to make them work, like additional doses. According to the virus expert, researchers did not have the time to do extensive studies. You mean they rushed it? They didn't have the time? They rushed it? Oh, okay. But I thought they've been studying it for 10 years. Remember? It's a big claim everyone wants to say when you want to say it was rushed. But they've been studying mRNA vaccines for 10 years. No, they haven't. The extensive studies determined whether 2 doses would be better than 3, as there was a pressing need to get vaccines out to people sooner rather than later, so we could have the breakthrough infections and everyone suffering for it. Yeah, that was a good idea. Which was life-saving for millions. Oh, really? Is it saving the millions' lives? Or they just haven't been hit yet? Getting the unvaccinated vaccinated and aggressively boosting the people who have been vaccinated is likely to put the U.S. in a safer spot this winter than the country saw with previous surges. Aren't they already calling for a 4th wave? I believe they are. They're saying a 4th winter wave is coming. I believe they said that in Canada, but... Oh, man. And in the States, they keep saying dark winter, dark winter, dark winter. The brutal winter of 2020. Fauci said, was it really brutal? It seemed pretty mild to me, but okay. Fauci said, as more time passes, we'll be able to see how long the boosters keep recipients protected from COVID. But Fauci is optimistic. I think when all this is said and done, as we get through boosting the overwhelming majority of the people who've been primarily vaccinated, we're going to say, just like other vaccines that require multiple doses, like hepatitis B, like some of the childhood vaccinations, that it is likely a booster is needed. He explained, I'm making my own personal projection as an immunologist and infectious disease person. We don't have the proof yet. The proof of the pudding will be after you get people vaccinated and boosted, and we have a greater durability of protection that doesn't wane as easily. So, there's your bullshit there. Then we have this little video here, this interaction between Tedros the Turd and the president of Brazil. And here is what they say. They don't speak English, so you'll have to read the subtitles.
Causa essas medidas todas tomadas muito rápidas, sem muito sentido, desequilibraram a economia. O mundo passou quase um ano de lockdown. Se continuar a economia fura de Right now the world is opening up. So I don't think we don't need another lockdown. A OMS, quanto ao passaporte de vacina, e a posição for now we haven't we are not recommending that because the vaccination rate in many countries is low. So you know, when vaccination, access to vaccination is low, having a certificate could be discriminating. But in Brazil, several people who did take the second dose are themselves contracting the virus, even after the second dose. Porque a vacina não previne a infecção, mas previne uma doença grave e previne o óbito, previne a morte. É esse o propósito. Right, but there are many people who have taken the second dose. Falou, ainda pode haver algumas pessoas sim, sobretudo aqueles que têm comorbidade, algumas outras condições ou quadro de saúde subjacente. 80% são assintomáticos. Right, but you know, 80% of the patients are asymptomatic. Eu não tenho o comando das ações da pandemia. Passou para governadores e prefeitos, questão judicial. E tem governador e prefeito exigindo a vacina da criança. Olha só, palavra dele, a OMS não recomenda a vacina para crianças. Nós temos que ter uma nota nesse sentido dizendo que a OMS não recomenda. A gente fala qualquer coisa que contraria a vacina, a imprensa, o judiciário é fake news. A gente fica amarrado e está mexendo com vidas de crianças. Nada melhor do que talking about essa determinação permanece. Qual a origem do vírus? Ainda estamos estudando.
Yeah, laugh it up, you douchebags. We're still studying it. The origin of the virus. And there you have it. Tedros does not recommend the vaccine for the children. So, I mean, Team Molly, why don't you take it from the WHO? Tedros doesn't think you should be vaccinating your children, but there you go in the U.S., vaccinating your children. Just found out that Molly saved 5 lives through organ donation, one more than we previously been told. Each of the recipients are doing well. It's rare to have no complications in 5 recipients, and a testament to the strength of our girl. Yeah, it's rare. Maybe it's BS. So yeah. Just more insanity. I don't want to see pics of your kid because it's not something I think is important. There's that crazy chaplain. Memento mori. My mice inflammatory markers are up. They've had to increase her vent settings. Her kidney function is now impaired. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. COVID is awful. Because, folks, DM asking, my wife is vaccinated and has a booster, apparently. Well, how about that, Tony Fauci? Tony Fauci, he has the booster. She has the booster, but she is dying. What do you do, Fauci? There is your evidence, asshole. Okay, that's all I have to show for tonight. Thank you for stopping by. I always appreciate your time and attention. I'm going to wrap this up. So yeah, with that said, I am Benamis reporting from the brave new world. Catch you next time.